The law is not respected. So if you find yourself in the arm of those people who are not respecting the law or the constitution, or just respecting the word which has been addressed to them, so you will be tortured and you will be beaten.
Everything you do from then on is different.
One of the detectives, I think his name was
He was a
Derek.
golden boy.
And all we can do right now is come together.
Extreme domestic violence, multiple rapes.
So glad to have you on life support. We are talking with a guest today who I think has a fascinating story that once again points to the love of God and how he brings us through difficult trials, and then how we can turn around and give back. And we're going to learn more about that. My guest is a man by the name of Blaise Masinga. And full disclosure, Blaise is a man who attends Ridgewood Church that I met probably maybe 6 months to a year ago, and we've had a chance to spend some time together. And Blaise, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you coming by.
Thank you, Pastor. I'm glad to be here with you.
And I also saw you on a big stage telling your story not long ago for an organization. And so your story is amazing, and we're going to talk about a foundation that you have as well, that you're hoping to help others that are struggling. But let's go back and begin your story in the Congo, right? So what kind of home did you grow up in the Congo? Because you had an experience where you ran into some missionaries, and your mom used to hang out with missionaries, but then there was a protest later on that turned out badly, and that's kind of where your story really took off. But tell me where you grew up and what your family was like.
Thank you so much for the question, Pastor. I was raised as a Mennonite in the Mennonite home, and both my parents, I will say my mom background, my mom parents were Baptist, and my dad Mennonite. So it's kind of like a hybrid Mennonite and a Baptist. So that's the kind of family which I grew up. I was born in the western part of Congo, and both my parents were teachers, and we were in a small village in the western part of Congo. That's pretty much my childhood, and I'm talking about Mennonite. It was a small Mennonite village called Kajiji. That's where a lot of Mennonite brethren used to go to help out people, the folks or the community over there. That's pretty much where I came from. And then from my childhood, I think I moved to the city called Kikwit. That's where I went for my high school. I will say when I completed my high school, then we're talking in the 90s. So now it's the time to dream to go to the college, but now that dream, I will say, was shut down because of the event which happened. And then whoever who is a Congolese, back then they used to call our country Zaire. And pretty much people will know what the event happened in that country.
Right.
Talking about the event happened in that country. But today, you and I are talking in 2020. So what we're talking here is more than 20 years, but those things up to now,
Right.
the situation hasn't even changed.
So what was happening exactly?
So what was happening exactly, Pastor, was think of a young one, someone who's coming from a middle class family. You don't have your parent investment, so the success of any child, it's education. So that's where you dream that, okay, I'm gonna better my future if I have an education. Of course, we have faith as well. So my dream was to become a medical doctor, and when I finished my high school, so the process in the Congo at the time was you have to apply to any college or to a university, but we were stopped. So I would say the political situation at the time didn't allow students or people like us to apply because we had a dictator. And then everyone who know Congo story will know his name was Mobutu Sese Seko Kukungendo. He was a bad president, and he was a horrible president, a dictator who didn't allow the university to be open, and then freedom of speech was stopped in terms of our march because we said this is unfair. Why we cannot educate while they're sending the kids in South Africa, sending the kids here in the United States and in Europe, but my dad, who is a teacher, and my mom, who's a teacher, doesn't have that money of sending his children to United States or to South Africa or even to Europe. Now, what are we gonna do if we don't have education?
Right, sure. And that's not it was a terribly unfair playing field.
Well,
And you mentioned a march. So obviously then this was a protest march that you're referring to?
exactly. It
Okay.
was a peaceful protest march which students like us and then many students like us were claiming university to be open so that we can register. I mean, because that's our future.
Yeah.
And we were arrested, and the march was brutally stopped by his soldiers. And some of us, we found ourselves in this situation which you don't want to know.
Right. So here you are on a peaceful protest, and soldiers arrest you for sounds like no good reason except for you were just trying to be a part of something that to open people's eyes. So what happened once you got arrested? Now this is where your story really takes a turn for I don't want to say the worst, but this is where things get really difficult, right? When you're in the hands of these soldiers.
Yes, these are the practice which happens in the country where democracy is not respected. So most of the time you will know that, especially right now we're talking back in the 90s, 1994. So, and this is the man who felt that he owned the country, and he didn't have to, he had nothing to do with anybody else. Whatever he said, that's exactly what people are supposed to follow. So
Right.
the Constitution wasn't respected at the time, and when the Constitution is not respected, so there is violations of a lot of things. So in other words, the democracy, you pretty much in the jungle, like.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now you're talking now teenagers who are thinking to becoming doctors of tomorrow, and then any future of a country is rely on the young people. So because they're the one who's going to take over when the other generation is gone, and that is based on education. It's based on good values.
Right.
So what are you thinking of someone who's shutting university? What are you thinking of someone who doesn't allow children to go to school? That's the big question. So is he thinking of tomorrow or not?
Right.
So what happened, I mean, we were, as I said, we were kind of like in the dark after being arrested, and obviously now we had to look means how to be out of it.
So what did those soldiers do to you, Blaise?
Well, if any times when you are in the country where there is lack of democracy or lack of freedom of speech, and as mentioned, so you are in the dictatorships. So what does it mean is that the law is not respected. So if you find yourself in the arm of those people who are not respecting the law or the constitution, or just respecting the word which has been addressed to them. So you will be tortured and you will be beaten. You'll be recipient of all those bad treatment.
And that was you.
Exactly.
And you didn't. All of a sudden, you found yourself in the hands of these people, and you. I think when I saw you speak, you referenced you still have scars to show for that. So how long did that go on? That I guess we can call it captivity, right? Because they were unlawfully arresting you and torturing you. How long did that go on?
Well, I will say that Congo in general, the situations, even right. I mean, I will say that we just got recently our first peacefully democratic election just happened in 2018. Your question is how long?
How long were you tortured? How long were you in captivity of those soldiers?
Oh no! So the things went quick because at the time I think we had I would say a help from the opposition party, which now we have a president whose father at the time was one of our leader in the opposition. His name was Etienne Tshisekedi. So he fighted so that the kids who have been arrested and who are marching to just ask for them to be enrolled at university, that's unfair. So he fighted for us, and then obviously that's how we escaped that situation.
And so then it came time for you to leave that country, and you needed to get out of there. And now this is where your life takes another turn, because now all of a sudden you're going to escape from the country or leave the country, come to the United States, but not with your family.
Yeah.
All by yourself. So tell me about that experience.
So before even talking about that experience, I think I will say that after those horrible events, which did happen to many students or many kids in the Congo, I was lucky with the help of my parent friends, especially my mom. Obviously, prior to even it was like I was ahead of time. I was thinking, okay, what am I gonna do with the way the situation is going in the country? So I wrote a letter to one of my family friends, and with the help of them, I will say missionary, and I was able to escape the situation to go to South Africa. So it was my parents' friends who helped me to escape the situation, to go to South Africa. And then from South Africa, that's another story. So pretty much you have escaped a horrible situation in the Congo. Now you're in South Africa. In South Africa, that's where things turned differently anyway. So we pretty much was like a refugee as well in South Africa, even if you had a help from the United States, from your parents' friends. But what kept me at that time was my visions and my faith, looking the background which I came from. So I remember the advice and then a bit of financial help which I had helped me to study, but with the studies of refugee. But that was really very hard.
Yeah.
That's very hard. And from that, we went through a different bad times. Anyone who have been in South Africa and with a status of refugee is not a good life. Yeah, even if I had some help of as I'm saying that being as a student. So we went through a situation where we were pretty much like stateless, meaning that you didn't have, if you are a refugee in South Africa, you don't have coverage like of medical insurance. you don't have. You don't have like a food stamp, and you don't. The work permit is very hard. The immigration system in South Africa is very, very hard. So life turns also a different point. In French, we say that you're running something, you go to another difficult situation. So your question was, after all those things, I'm one of those people who have lived by faith. And that's why my faith in God has helped me to escape or to deal with difficult situations.
Well, and you've had a lot of them. I mean, you're talking about torture. You're talking about finally getting out of there, going to South Africa where you were mistreated there. You're alone. Was that faith kindled when you were a child in your Baptist/Mennonite home?
Yes, exactly. Because I remember and Pastor, think I am in South Africa. It's a country which I was born in Congo, as you know, but you are in South Africa, is a country which you need to speak English. But I landed in South Africa with 0 word in English. I only knew, how are you? That's it.
Right.
So you are 19 years old or 19 years old who doesn't know how to speak English. He's alone.
Yeah.
He is alone. He doesn't have no one.
Yeah.
But at least only the help, as I just described it.
Yeah.
Now you have to find a school to learn English. Not only a school to learn English, you have to find a place to sit, to live for a living, like accommodation. So it was a very hard time, because sometimes you don't even have an interpreter.
Yeah.
And you need someone to translate what you're saying so that they can understand. So life wasn't easy.
So how did you know that God was with you?
Exactly the way I'm telling you that, okay, it's a miracle. I'm saying to you that I'm landing, a 19 years old is landing in South Africa with just a French, without a dad, without a mom, without a cousins, without a friend, no one. And I remember the first person, in fact, the person which I met in the plane, when he saw me, he asked me, where are you going? I told him that I don't even know where I'm going. Because that was the truth.
Yeah.
Because only I had just sponsorship, but I didn't even know. There were no arrangement, So I landed in the airport with this specific person. I think he was a businessman who was going to do some trading or some business in South Africa. And he said to me, I know someone who's going to meet me at the airport. Maybe he will help you to find somewhere to sleep. So that's the situation.
Wow.
So for someone who couldn't speak English, 19 years old, and you managed to have education without a proper studies of immigration studies, that's, if not God, who can do that?
Yeah, that's right. And you had been through torture, and you got to South Africa, and he provided for you. And we've got a lot more of your story to tell, so we're going to have you back next time as well, Blaise. But you've started a foundation now to help those who are oppressed, to those that need help. Tell me about that foundation.
Well, yes, and thank you for asking about this. My foundation is Masinga Foundations, and it's pretty much your life story can change to a situation, or it become your ministry. And my life story is now a ministry, which, because as you speaking with me right now, there is someone in Congo who have been tortured. As we talking right now, there is someone who cannot afford, like my mom, who couldn't afford a medical bill, and she passed.
And you were telling me that if she would have had access to medical care, she would be alive today.
Exactly. And this is a woman.
And this is happening right now in 2020.
It's happening in 2020. So And this is a woman who told me, if you want to succeed in life, education is a key. But that education was pretty much shut down with the situation the way we just explained. And this is a woman who gave you life, and whom, if you think you would have helped if you were in the position to help. But now she's gone, she's in heaven, and I know one day we will meet with her, but I don't want it to happen again to another woman. And that is the philosophy behind Masinga Foundations. It's about caring. It's about, like Jesus himself. So we said the Samaritan woman, it's about caring. It's about thinking for those who are helpless, thinking for those who are voiceless, thinking for those who cannot do anything of themselves. Pastor, let me tell you something. My parents, by the time I went to South Africa, they were teachers, but they were pretty much like 10 years without being paid. And let me tell you something. My dad is 80 years old. He has worked for 40 years as a teacher, but now he's sitting in the same room with my sister, who earned $300 as registered nurse. And my dad, who have worked for 40 years, he doesn't have like what we sing here in Minnesota, that you can have a retirement. He doesn't have retirement. So that's the philosophy behind the Masinga Foundation. Can you help someone like Blaise Dad and other people, or like my sister, who have been working as registered nurse for 20 plus years, but earning $300? Do the math of a registered nurse here in Minnesota.
So give me a website address for your foundation if somebody would like to check that out.
Well, my foundation is www.masingafoundation.org.
So masinga.org.
Yes.
Okay. So I've got more questions for you. I'm going to have you back next time because I want to find out more about your story, because your story is just unfolding. You haven't even made it to the U.S. in your story yet. We're going to talk about that next time, okay?
Thank you so much.
And I'm so glad you're here.